I've done a lot of public speaking and teaching parents with cancer, metastatic disease, or, early stage. And a lot of them come up to me afterward and say, I didn't think I could use the word cancer with my kids. And I now understand why I need to use that word. I now know kind of like how I can explain it in a way that isn't terrifying. I think a lot of parents think that they are protecting their kids by not explaining it, but it actually turns out, the exact opposite.
I'm Dr. Tina Kaiser.
And I'm Dr. Leah Sherman.
And we're two naturopathic doctors who practice integrative cancer care.
But we're not your doctors.
This is for education, entertainment, and informational purposes only.
Do not apply any of this information without first speaking to your doctor.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast by the hosts and their guests are solely their own.
Welcome to the Cancer Pod. Hey, Tina.
Hey, Leah.
How much fun is this conversation?
I had a great time.
Yeah, no, this was really, this was such a good interview. I know we say this all the time, but it really was. We spoke with Sarah Olsher, who is the creator of Mighty and Bright. She underwent some major life changes, and she took her experience as a cancer survivor and her experience through divorce, and she created this business. She wrote a book, ended up writing 12 books. I guess that's what she's up to now. And she has these schedules that she's created through Mighty and Bright where you can use them with kids to help them kind of manage their lives. And I don't know. I don't want to give too much away, but that's kind of the summary. Do you think that's a good summary?
I think it's a good summary. I think that, faced with challenges, she saw how universal some of her challenges are, and she set about finding solutions, not just for her own kid, but more applicable broadly for other folks out there who are single moms or have cancer diagnoses and they have to go through that.
Yeah, that's a better summary than me. But you're far more eloquent. No, and it was a really great conversation. I don't know if we mentioned at the end, but we did talk about her TikTok. She has an Instagram. It's Mighty and Bright Co. So if we failed to mention that, we'll also have links in the show notes to how you can find her, including her websites and how to order the books and everything. But
Yeah. And as always, the whole idea here is for our listeners to gain some knowledge that is either helpful for them personally or for their loved ones or someone they know. There's a lot of really useful tidbits in here. I think that can be helpful for people.
Yeah. And this is one of the first ones. We've talked to people about, like family being kind of part of this whole cancer world. But this is the one where we really talk about, kids and the impact it has on kids. And so this is kind of a, it's a new world for us, but a new world. It's a whole new world.
Yeah. It's definitely a big, a steep learning curve for me, because I don't have kids. So
I don't either.
Yeah. So the challenges, I understand them in the abstract, and I can only appreciate the fact that I only know them in the abstract, that's a lot different to live through it, I would imagine.
Yeah. And we've had patients, obviously, who have children and, trying to work with them through some of these issues that come up. I wish I knew about the solution before, because this would be something that I would definitely recommend for patients.
Totally agree. Having some tools to help bring kids along and help them through it and lessen their anxiety that they might have. And it was a great conversation.
Okay. So before we get to the episode, remember you can follow us on Instagram. We're on TikTok, YouTube. If you're watching this video on YouTube, hello there. And we are listener supported. I sound like NPR. We're listener supported. We do not take any money from advertising because we don't want anything to sway our views or what we talk about, our opinions. We do have a Buy Me a Coffee, and we really appreciate any donations that we get there. It does kind of keep us going behind the scenes, helps to pay for the editing and the website and all of that. So
we have a donate button on our webpage as well. which takes
true.
you there as well.
Oh, and if you like this episode, if you want to comment on this or any other episode, you can also comment on our website. There's a little microphone tab off to the side, and leave us a message and we will play it.
Without further ado, here's our guest. Hello, Sarah. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to chat with you.
Yeah, we did some looking online and you're quite prolific with your books. And so I can see that this has been going on about 5 years from what I can tell, maybe longer in your storyline, but as far as what's been published on Amazon and such, can you start us out with a little of what inspired you and your background on creating these books specifically for children and helping children understand what's going on with their parents during treatment for cancer?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is in psychology, and I was like running a business on the side that was very much about kids' mental health and like how to help them through transitions and hard things. So I had like a background knowledge of kind of how kids cope when something hard happens. And I really needed that because when I was 34 and my daughter was 6, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I was divorced at the time, and I thought that I was just going in for I had a family history of breast cancer. And so I had just been advocating for myself for a long time. Like, hey, I think I need early screenings. And then I started to have this weird sensation in my left breast that felt like breast milk being let down. And I had kind of gotten poo-pooed by my doctor previously about the early screening. She was like, yeah, unless you have a first-degree relative, we're no longer doing, early detection. And I had literally every single woman in my family on both sides had breast cancer, except for my mother at that point. My dad's side of the family is Ashkenazi Jewish. I had no genetic screenings, nothing. And I just thought, this is ridiculous. So when I started having that weird sensation, I just thought I should A, go get this checked out, and B, I'm no longer taking no for an answer at this point because my mom had just been diagnosed with breast cancer, postmenopausal breast cancer. She just had a lumpectomy. It was really like not that big of a deal in the breast cancer world. And so I went into the doctor. She didn't feel anything, but she got me into the early screening program. And so I went in for my baseline MRI. They said, we see something kind of funny, but we often see things that are kind of funny. Mm-hmm. And so I went in for a, ultrasound and a diagnostic mammogram at 4 p.m. on a Friday afternoon. And the radiologist looked very serious looking at my ultrasound. And I said, what is going on? Like, am I going to need a biopsy? And he looks at me and says, do you want me to be frank? And I'm thinking, yeah. Like, I don't want to wait all weekend. What's going on? And he said, what we are seeing can be nothing other than cancer. And you are going to need your entire left breast removed. And I was very much in shock. I was like, no, I don't think you understand. Like, I'm 34. Right. I am a single mom. This is not part of my plan. Mm-hmm. So I don't, I don't know what you're talking about. And I literally had to have this man talk to my parents on the phone because my dad was a doctor and explain to them what was going on. So because I couldn't process it. And they thought that I had DCIS. And it turned out, so I was going to go in for a preventative double mastectomy. I was like, don't leave one of them, just take it all. And when I woke up from that surgery, it turned out that it had actually spread to my lymph nodes already. I never had a tumor. If I had not gone in and advocated for myself, I probably would not be sitting here. That was 7 years ago.
So wait. You never had a tumor. You mean they didn't?
Tumor.
They didn't identify a tumor itself.
It was calcifications all the way up from my nipple all the way to my lymph nodes.
So there was nothing palpable. You couldn't feel it.
Nope. Not a single thing. At any point, I could not feel a single thing. Even right before my surgery, there was no lump. So obviously super terrifying. And my number one fear, even when I thought it was stage 0, was what am I going to do about my daughter? Because our background was that she had really severe anxiety, and she was diagnosed with separation anxiety. Like, I was her person. And the only thing I could think about was like her tear-stained face at my funeral. Like, I was dark.
And how old was she at this time? She was 6 when you were diagnosed.
Yeah.
Okay. And just to clarify, is this lobular or ductal?
It was ductal.
It was ductal. Okay. Because lobular often isn't palpable. That's why I was asking. Like, that's not uncommon. But
and
ductal,
my mom had lobular. Okay. That was that first diagnosis she had. And then the year after I had cancer, she was diagnosed in her other breast with ductal.
Okay.
So we've had a whole lot of cancer in my family.
Yeah. Okay.
In a short period of time.
Yes. A cancer sandwich. We have pictures of my mom and I with no hair together.
Well, yeah, that's a hell of a way to bond.
Yeah, my dad was like, this is not a good group activity. Can you please stop it?
Right, exactly. All right. So your daughter was 6.
Yeah. And so what I did was, because I had this background in psychology and specifically with, helping kids cope with transitions like divorce, I knew that I needed to explain things to her. I couldn't just, pretend like everything was okay and have her be fine, because I knew she was going to notice like the change in the air. She was going to know something wasn't right. And so my go-to with any like big thing was like, I'm going to go get a book to help me explain this to her. So I think I bought probably 6 books and got another like 4 at the library. And I brought them home and was immediately like, well, this is a no. I mean, one of the books I got on Amazon literally had a surgeon holding a bloody knife. And I was like,
oh my God,
who let this through?
That's for a children's book.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
But the thing that I realized, like, after looking through all those books, was I actually wanted to explain to her what cancer was. And at the time, this was 7 years ago, there was nothing out there that explained the science of cancer in a way that, I mean, even probably an adult could understand on a, basic level. There were no children's books about it. So I kind of had to come up with my own method of explaining it to her. And so that explanation, which we can get into if you would like, but that kind of served as a basis for what I did during my treatment, because I immediately took a leave of absence from work. But the way I kept my brain occupied was writing my first book and illustrating it.
Yeah. Yeah. And the name of that book, because I jotted that one down, What Happens When Someone I Love Has Cancer, explain the science of cancer and how a loved one's diagnosis and treatment affects a kid's day-to-day life. That was its subtitle, right? So
yes.
And that's still available.
Yes.
So
yeah, and it's used in children's hospitals all over the country. It's really
congrats.
Yeah, thank you. It really is what I just have such a passion for helping parents have really difficult conversations with their kids, because if there's no resources out there, what I've learned is parents will just not have a conversation because they don't know how.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is the biggest compliment to any author is readership, right?
For sure.
That's what you want. You want it to get it out there, especially self-help books or books that will help parents bridge their conversations with their kids. I did look at some interviews you did online, and communication was really the crux of what you want to get out there is helping bridge the communication gap out there between the adults and the kids.
For sure. For sure. Yeah. I would say, I think I've done a lot of public speaking and teaching parents with cancer, metastatic disease, or, early stage. And a lot of them come up to me afterward and say, I didn't think I could use the word cancer with my kids. And I now understand why I need to use that word. I now know kind of like how I can explain it in a way that isn't terrifying. I think a lot of parents think that they are protecting their kids by not explaining it, but it actually turns out, the exact opposite. And I had to explain to my daughter too, I'm really young. And so cancer is a really big word that means a lot of different things. And it can mean, a really big illness where people are sick for a really long time. Some people die. And that isn't the type of cancer that I have. But the people who you're going to talk to or I'm going to talk to are going to have a strong reaction because they don't know what type of cancer I have. So I'm having this conversation with you so that you don't get scared when you see how other people react, because mostly this happens to older people. And so they're going to be surprised. And even just that conversation protected her from her second grade teacher who they were writing these little cards for a kid with terminal leukemia. And the teacher pulled her aside and said, "Are you okay? Because this kid has the same thing your mom has."
Oh.
And my second grader said, "Actually, that kid doesn't have the same thing my mom has. This is what my mom has. That kid does not have what my mom has." And I just,
for her.
right? And I just thought to myself, this could have gone so differently. And
Right.
the chances are high that if the teacher had said something to her, she probably wouldn't have come home and said anything to me because she would have been trying to protect me.
Right.
And she would have kept it inside. And then she would have worried every night that I was going to die, like this kid with leukemia who unfortunately didn't make it.
Yeah.
Horrible.
Well, it sounds like the apple didn't fall far from the tree, because I did catch that you put this book out, the first book, to publishers and got rejected wherever you went, wherever you sent it. Wasn't big enough audience, I think is what you said.
Yeah, they said cancer isn't a big enough niche, which to say that to somebody in active treatment, I was like, are you kidding me? No.
Yeah.
I don't care if this helps 2 people. It's a big enough niche for me.
Yes. Right. Because your purpose is different than their purpose. They're a publishing company looking at, counting beans. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So you self-published, and you've self-published since. Is that correct?
Yeah. I'm not necessarily opposed to traditional publishing, but I really learned that I am able to react much more quickly. The turnaround time with traditional publishing is a long time. And I just felt compelled to get this into the hands of as many people as I possibly could. And then when it came to other resources that I saw were needed, I'm not entertaining this at this point, because I feel like, my latest book is co-written with a child life specialist at the Mayo Clinic, and it's all about what happens when someone you love is going to die, like within the next few weeks. And there are literally no resources out there for that conversation. And according to the child life specialists, most parents are not going to have the conversation, and they're just going to try and deal with the grief afterward. And I thought, I'm not going to wait, 3 years and get rejected, from publishers over a topic I think is this important.
Yeah.
So your background is not only in psychology, but were you working as an illustrator or in the arts before that, or was this something new?
It was sort of new. I went to college and was going to be a therapist. And then I got a chronic illness and I had to drop out of my doctoral program. And I started an illustration business where I was drawing people's wedding invitations. Okay. So I taught myself how to draw, even though I've been doing it since I was a kid. And so all of these pieces sort of come together in this like beautiful symphony. I was like, I would have never thought that I would have had a career that involved illustration and psychology and, all these different things. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And you get to help people, which is, which is really the crux of what you're doing. I dug deep onto YouTube, and I did spot some, I think, planted videos that you don't intend people to find. Maybe you don't even remember you did this, but you turn the camera on. There's been like 56 people have watched it to this point. So it's not a lot of subscribers or viewers. And it has to do with you turning the camera on and looking at the camera and saying, I'm planning this now. I'm not telling my family. I'm not telling my friends. Here's what's going on. And you write to me in 10 years and I'll still be here to answer your comments. And I just want people who are 30 something now with a diagnosis to know that it can be okay. And so You were talking to
Oh,
basically your
yeah.
future audience, which was a little eerie, but kind of
That
cool.
is.
That's 6 years ago.
Creepy. I completely forgot I did that. And it was because I was on YouTube searching for stories of people that lived because I was terrified I wasn't going to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It was very moving, I'll tell you, because
Thank you.
it was clearly heartfelt. It wasn't, you weren't on YouTube for any, self-promotion purposes. That was clearly a sincere reach out to fellow women who are going to find themselves where you were 6 years ago.
Yeah, I totally forgot that was a thing.
Well, don't take it down.
I won't. Right. Again, if any of those 56 people look at that and they're like, she's still alive.
There you go.
I did. There it goes. That's good for me.
Yeah, 6 years down.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's switch gears. You also have a business besides the books, which are available, I should mention, on your website.
Yeah, and on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and all the places.
Yeah, and as long as you spell Sarah correctly, Sara, Olsher, Olsher, it should be easy to find your books and you. Your website is yourname.com, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, super simple. But you also have a business and a nonprofit. Is that correct?
We actually are folding the nonprofit into the business. Okay. I realized if you want to do good, just do good and don't overcomplicate things. I basically wanted to find a vehicle for donating my books to children's hospitals. And so we've just created a charitable mission around my business. So every order that we receive, we donate a book or a treatment calendar to children affected by cancer. So now we don't need the nonprofit anymore.
Got it. Well, that makes sense. I mean, simplifying things is always a good thing. So the business itself, the actual items that you sell are calendars?
Yeah, ish. So it started out, I was doing this actually on the side, just as a side hustle. When I was diagnosed with cancer, I was selling co-parenting calendars, like magnetic co-parenting calendars, so that kids could see visually when they would see each parent during a divorce. And because I thought at the time, I was like, this is the worst thing, it's so awful and so traumatizing. Mm-hmm. And everybody's always talking about putting the kids first, but they don't actually tell you how to do that. And with my background, I knew, kids learn in a different way. They don't have the executive functioning skills to be able to remember when they're going to see each parent. So I created this calendar. There were none out there, and I just ran it on the side. And then when I was diagnosed with cancer, I remember saying to my mom, I think she must have flown to my house somehow because she lived in Oregon and at the time I was in California. She was at my house the day after I was diagnosed with cancer. And I said to her, I just do not want this to be as hard as the divorce was. She looked at me and I was like, yeah, it's already harder than the divorce was. It's really bad. Yeah. And that was when I started to realize, from my own personal, there are so many things that kids are going through. Like anything an adult is going through, mm-hmm. the kids are going through it too. And so that realization, kind of made me realize that there were a whole host of things that kids needed shown visually to them. And so I started creating a calendar for my daughter so she would understand, when I was going to be at the doctor, when I was going to be at the hospital. I tried to plan out activities with her so that, she had something to look forward to even in the days after chemo when I felt exhausted and I wasn't going to be the mom that I wanted to be for her. At least she would be able to look forward to something later in the week when I could anticipate I'd be feeling better. Mm-hmm. And so then it kind of grew from there. And now we have a whole host of different charts, basically, for both kids to understand things like what's going on in their lives, like routine charts, that sort of thing, but also breaking things down into smaller steps. So if like a kid needs to learn how to clean their room and you just tell them, go in your room and clean your room, that can be really overwhelming for kids. So we have mm-hmm. charts that like break it down step by step. Like first you put away everything that's yellow, then you throw away all the trash, all that. And then we started getting comments on TikTok from people who were like, I need this for adults.
Yes. I saw that. You have like, and so it's the magnet that's different, or
yeah. So each thing we have different charts. So one of them is like a to-do list. One of them is a calendar. And then we create these sticker sheets where you can essentially look at all of the different options depending on what it is. Like we have one for division of labor for like it's basically an adult chore chart. And you can get 2 of those charts, and then you can sit down with your partner and look at all of the things and prioritize what actually needs to be done, and then assign them to different people. You assemble the whole thing, and then you no longer need to communicate with your partner about, did you take the trash out? Because you can see it, and they can take that magnet from the to-do list and they can put it on their weekly calendar. So you can see, okay, you're not just planning to, do it someday. You actually have a plan to do it on this day. And that just decreases the amount of communication snafus and resentment. And it becomes really clear if there is one partner who does all the stuff, it becomes really clear to the other partner how little that partner is doing, which is very helpful. And during treatment is like, that was the thing for me. Like so many things are run through the lens of like, I am a single mom. I am neurodivergent now. And I have this whole household running. Like, how helpful would it have been to me to have that on the chart, like on my fridge? So when friends came over, they could see what needed to be done and just help me out by doing it, instead of saying to me, will you tell me what needs to be done? And I'm like, I don't accept help well. And also, I'm too tired to think about this. I'll live in filth. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I mean, on all of those counts, because it comes back down to that communication idea. Like,
absolutely,
it's clear, whether you're talking with kids or your partner or your friends, like, and that's a really good idea. That's come up on this podcast before, which is well-meaning friends and family coming to person that's going through treatment and you're exhausted and you don't know exactly what you need, but you need a lot of things.
Yeah.
And if there was something on the fridge that simply said, okay, nobody took out the trash this week,
right,
or whatever, like whatever you populate it with that you can think of when you're feeling well enough to think of things.
And I think that's the whole thing, right? Because the thinking of the things, I really feel like my brain chemistry was changed during chemo because I didn't have the energy to think about even my own thoughts. I was just like watching them go by. I couldn't think of all the things that needed to be done. And that's true if you have ADHD. A lot of the time, you can't think of the things that need to be done. And so we've done all the mental labor for you by giving you, like in the chore chart case, 3 different sticker sheets that are all organized according to how often they need to be done or what they relate to. So you don't actually even need to think about it, because the thinking is, I don't think it's doable, quite frankly.
Right. And all of this is like reusable. This is not throwaway stuff. This is magnets and sheets and put up on the fridge typically.
Yeah. We have 2 different kinds. One of them is magnetic for refrigerators, or it has holes so you can hang it on the wall. And then we have this really weird material that sticks to literally anything. So if you don't have a magnetic refrigerator, you want to put it on the door, it works like that too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Was it during your treatment that you also came up with the special time cards?
That was post-treatment. That was actually during the pandemic. And I collaborated with a parenting coach named Danielle Bettman from Parenting Wholeheartedly to create those, because we were really worried about kids' mental health and parenting during the pandemic, or if you have multiple kids, or in my case, if you have a chronic illness or you're going through treatment. There are any number of reasons why playing with your kids can be overwhelming. And we created these cards that are basically putting structure around playtime. So they're color coded. You can choose between play, active, art, or chill cards. So you as a parent select, however many cards look appealing to you. And then you let your kid choose from those cards about what you want to do. And then you play for 15 minutes and then their bucket is filled. You did not end up playing the floor is lava when you had chemo yesterday, and life is better for everybody.
Right. Well, it's interesting because the role of expectations, controlling expectations, helping the kids have some less anxiety because it's less of a unknown, less of a, just who knows what's going to be happening tomorrow or the next day or later today for that matter. And a sense of some control over it.
Yeah.
Some say in it, at least some say in what's going to be happening.
And all these things are created with that in mind. Like the calendars come with these reusable stickers, and the idea isn't that you put it together as a parent and then hand it to your kid. Like they love the stickers, so they're helping to put it together. Now they have a sense of ownership over it. And we have a sticker sheet for chronic illness that has like a plan A and a plan B. So like, if I feel well, we will go play games in the park. And then the plan B is, if I don't feel well, we'll play board games at home. You can let your kids make the decision about which of these activities you're going to do together. And then you're managing their expectations, but you're also giving them a sense of control so that they don't feel like everything is constantly happening to them. Because treatment feels long for adults. I mean, it feels long for adults, but it feels extra long for kids.
Yeah. And anything that improves communication is good. So I can see how this has shifted to the adult world very, very naturally.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. For all of us, like late diagnosed ADHD
Mm-hmm.
people, especially after treatment, because I went through treatment myself. And so I feel like all of that kind of came out after.
Yeah, me too.
You know, like
me too.
Really, whatever masking we were doing as children.
Yeah, it's just like, I'm not able to do this anymore. Like, my brain just does not work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know if we mentioned all of these calendars and that we're talking about and the donation of the books to the places because people buy the calendars. That is all happening on a website called Mighty and Bright, which is the name of your company, right?
Yes. Yeah. Mighty and Bright. Yeah.
Just so people know where to find that if they want to look at that. And of course, social media is where people will see you. You're most prolific on?
Probably TikTok. Mighty and Bright is pretty active on Instagram. But I just love TikTok.
You?
Oh my gosh. It is so good for my mental health. My whole feed at this point is like silly cats and Taylor Swift. I'm just like, this brings me a lot of joy.
You mean when you're doing it, not your actual content? Yeah. You're putting some videos out.
I'm just scrolling.
You're scrolling through cats and Taylor Swift. That's
yes.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I was wondering if you even had a theater background because you are so animated on TikTok. Like I loved watching. I was just kind of starting like at the most recent, I was kind of scrolling through, and I'm like, I have a theater background, and I am so awkward on TikTok.
Yeah, it just is practice and pretending like I'm somebody else. Like the when I have my employee Katie is like all of our bloopers are being like, that was absolutely awful, and she's like, well then you should say this, and then I say that, and then I have to cut the whole thing together because the whole thing is me being like, why did I say that? That was terrible.
Well, you can't tell. You are just so like present and
Thank you.
Captivating. I love it.
Thanks.
I was really having a lot of fun watching your.
Oh, good. Thank you.
So is there anything else that we need to let our listeners know as far as anything else is going on? Oh, you know what? I didn't even mention last year, 2023, you were awarded.
Oh, yeah.
Remarkable Woman.
Yeah. That award. Was cool.
I saw it so I picked up it on Coin 6 News. They had candidates one like every week for a month, and then you ended up winning the contest. What was that?
So Nexstar Media, they own a lot of the news organizations across the country. And so they did this whole campaign, and they do it every year, of trying to recognize women who are doing things that are good for their community, not for the glory, but for just helping people. And so I was nominated somehow in the Pacific Northwest where I live and ended up winning. And then they sent me and 107 other women from all over the country to LA. And it was so awesome to meet all of these women who are doing mostly nonprofit work with, homeless kids, homeless seniors, feeding people. It was really cool.
Yeah, I saw the clips on Coin 6 News, and they made it look like you guys were treated like rock stars.
Oh, we totally were. They even gave us a star as like the kind that you get on the Walk of Fame.
Uh-huh.
If you get, I didn't know this, but if you have a star on the Walk of Fame, you also get a little star that you get to take home with you. And
Oh, nice.
yeah, it was cool. To take home a little star.
Oh.
Don't look for my star on the road in Hollywood. It is not there.
Well, isn't this where you're supposed to prop it up behind you as you're,
Probably. This old thing.
Oh, that.
Oh, yeah, I love that. It makes me so happy because it also just reminds me of how many cool people there are out there that are doing so many different things that are making the world a better place, which, if you get overwhelmed by the news, seeing something positive like that is
Absolutely.
It's everything. It's everything. I feel like we swim in a world of a lot of really good people who do things for the right reasons and just want to help other people. And so I feel privileged to know so many people like that, but it was great to see it on the news and kind of, for a change, some good news. Yeah.
Totally. Yes. And it was really fun because I got to meet all of the anchors at Coin 6, and they were all so excited for the exact same reason. They were like, usually we're covering horrible things, and this just makes us so happy.
I do want to point out also that you have books or a book for children who are going through cancer themselves.
I do. Yeah. So it started with the one for when someone you love has cancer. And then I had Duke University reach out and say, we use this all the time for children of adult patients. Do you have anything for pediatric patients? It could be the same explanation, just switched up a little bit. And I thought, well, that's a no-brainer. Done. So I did that. And then they reached out again and they said, actually, we would really like one for siblings. And again, I'm like, if this helps anybody, I will do it. And so I created one for siblings. And as it turned out, that was a really needed resource, the siblings of pediatric patients, because as the parents are, their attention is quite reasonably on the child that is ill, but it makes the sibling feel ignored or left behind a lot of the time. So created that one. And then they're all available in Spanish also. And then the Mayo Clinic reached out and said, do you have anything for anticipatory grief? And as she and I were talking, we realized we actually need a second book for, the stage that is after active treatment, and is maybe chronic illness recovering from treatment, or could be, long-term treatment if you have metastatic illness and you have to kind of set expectations for your kids. So we created What Happens When Someone I Love Doesn't Feel Good. And that book is really great for people who have metastatic disease, or who, like me, their body just did not work right for years after treatment. That one was kind of inspired by my daughter, who had a birthday party she was going to where they were walking in the 100-degree heat to the park, then having a picnic, playing tag out in the, grassy 100 degrees, then walking back to the house, then going to the arcade and doing paintball after that. And my daughter was like, Mom, I knew that you weren't playing tag because you weren't going to have enough energy for all the things and you were saving it for paintball. And I thought, I think we need to have a book about this. So, because I don't think there's a lot of things that you just don't think about until after it's over, and if you had resources that were like, hey, your kid probably needs to know this, it would make it so much easier for parents to have the conversation. And then kids are going to feel so much better having heard that information and been prepared for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's commendable also that you see that your challenges are somewhat universal challenges, and then recognizing that you can do something to help others get through it. Even if you're looking at it in retrospect in your own life and going, oh, well, they're basically creating what would be nice for you to have found before.
Absolutely.
So it's really organic and very authentic. And I think that's also really noticeable in everything that you do. It's heartfelt.
Thank you. Yeah, I really felt strongly, I had breast cancer, but I mean, I have lots of friends who had colon cancer, stomach cancer, brain cancer. I did not want to create resources that were specific to breast cancer. I didn't want to create resources that were specific, in some cases, even just to cancer. Like the book about not feeling good, that could be cancer. It could be ALS. We have like a guide in the back that will help you explain the science behind literally anything we could think of, from multiple sclerosis to depression, in kids speak, because there are any number of reasons why an adult's body might not feel good.
Yeah, that's great. Again, just creating the need, seeing the need, and then filling the need is a great way to go about this. And
Thanks.
I'm sure it's a big reason for the success of the book and various cancer centers and universities integrating it into their programs. So
yeah,
kudos.
Thank you.
Makes me want to buy the whole set.
Thanks.
I love how, you have Duke approaching you. I mean, you have these major centers coming to you.
Yeah. I was freaking out. I mean, honestly, I remember the first time I got a huge bulk order from a major cancer center that I recognized. I was like, this is insane. And then after I wrote the kids book and I had, St. Jude, I was like, I have arrived. I don't care if I make 1 cent off of this. Those kids, this is amazing. Yeah, it feels really good.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today. I'm so happy that you made some time and that our listeners get to learn about your books and your products. And I encourage everyone to go check it out online. And as simple as going to Amazon, you can find it there too.
We'll mention the website again, mightyandbright.com.
Yes, that's for the calendars. And then Sarah Olsher with no H. I should probably get it with an H too, but SarahOlsher.com is for the books.
Yeah. And a reminder that purchasing the calendar ends up giving a book gets given away.
Mm-hmm.
So that's gifting a book to people in need. So yeah, thank you so much. This is great. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. Maybe we'll run into you sometime in the Portland-Salem area. Who knows?
Yeah, awesome. Love that.
All right.
Thanks for listening to the Cancer Pod. Remember to subscribe, review, and rate us wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on social media for updates. And as always, this is not medical advice. These are our opinions. Talk to your doctor before changing anything related to your treatment plan. The Cancer Pod is hosted by me, Dr. Leah Sherman, and by Dr. Tina Kaiser. Music is by Kevin MacLeod. See you next time.